Hello, sports fans, Cleveland Cavs fans. This is Real Talk with the Sports Heads. This is the Cleveland Cavs Corner. I'm your host, Earl Grant. This is the first installment of this show. So basically, what I'm doing here, I'm just going to come in from time to time and just fill in Cleveland Cavs fans about what's going on with the team and the organization. The state of the Cavs, okay? I mean, the Cavs haven't made the playoffs since LeBron took his talents to South Beach. And moving on, I don't even know if we've had a 30-win season since then either. Our big guy right now is Kyrie Irving. He's a superstar, and it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. He's got 2 years left on his contract, and in 2 years, you're going to have every team in the league, courting him for his services. So it is imperative right now that the franchise makes the proper moves to put the proper team around him to win now, to give the team leverage to make sure that we can lock Kyrie up long term. In the NBA draft, we won a lottery. We had the number 1 overall pick. And before you try to tear down the pick of Anthony Bennett out of UNLV, what you have to understand is in this draft, there was no consistent number 1 overall pick. Okay, there was no guy who teams really felt like was that lights out franchise player like a Derrick Rose or a Kevin Durant or a LeBron James. So keep that in mind as we evaluate the pick. So first and foremost, I've had people say, well, what about Oladipo at 1? What about a guard? You can't have that, and here's why. Our star has completed 3 seasons. That's Kyrie Irving. Dion Waiters, our first-round pick from last season, he'll be coming into his second year. You simply cannot add a Ben McLemore or Victor Oladipo as the third guard in our rotation as a team that's trying to win right now. We have pieces in place where we can win. You got to understand, we were 14 or 15 wins away from the number 8 spot in the playoffs, so we have to find a way to make that up now going into the next season there. So let's talk about Nerlens Noel from Kentucky, okay? Blew out his ACL. He's not going to touch the court until at least December. As a team that's trying to improve now, that's just not a smart move. And then on top of that, with big men and injuries, a la Greg Oden, let me also refer to the Andrew Bynum fiasco up there in Philadelphia. Taking a guy number 1 overall with health concerns and also the holes in his game that he has, that just wasn't really a smart move to play. And something that frustrated me a week leading up to the draft, I keep hearing, oh, Cavs like Alex Len. No, thank you, okay? When you're talking about number 1, you're talking about a guy has to have at least 2 star qualities that you see in him right now. Alex Len had none of that. He never dominated in college at Maryland, never took his team to the postseason. That's not the type of guy that we want to bring in to win right now and projecting towards the future. I don't really know what he excels at. Now, when we look at our pick of Anthony Bennett, obviously adding something to the front court would have been a good move for the Cavs. So when we look at Anthony Bennett, he dominated this competition. At 19 years old, he was the Mountain West Player of the Year. And yes, I know it's not the ACC. I know it's not the Big East, but it's still big boy Division I college basketball, players with scholarships. So you have to give him his props on what he did in the conference. He finishes at the rim, strong and hard. I can see him right now in transition, finishing on the break, playing off of Kyrie. Very soft touch from 15 feet out, and that's a surprising part of his game for a player who plays with the type of force that he plays with on the interior. He's very agile. He can beat his man off the dribble. I'm talking small forwards in the NBA. I can see him beating his man off the dribble. And definitely if he's playing the 4 and he's facing up power forwards, I can definitely see power forwards having serious problems trying to stop this guy from scoring. He's also an excellent offensive rebounder. And when you think about the attention that Kyrie's going to draw, the attention that Dion Waiters is going to draw, and eventually Tristan Thompson is going to be at the point where he may command double teams, now we have a guy crashing and attacking the offensive glass, and that's already a strength of Anthony Bennett. he has star potential. And when you're drafting number one overall, you have to take a guy who has star potential. I can see him coming into the league immediately being a 14 to 16 point a night type of guy, pulling down, 8+ rebounds as a rookie. And his defensive weaknesses, I mean, what player at 19 years old is a defensive stalwart as far as man-to-man defense? Yeah, you have guys who may block some shots, but those are far and few, such as Anthony Davis, the number one pick from the Hornets a year ago. And his defensive weaknesses can be worked on and improved when you have a head coach that's a defensive guru, such as Mike Brown. So the holes in his game defensively are something that, can very much be worked on, and that can become a strength of his game. I also like what we did in the bottom of the first round. With Sergev Karsavov. I'm going to butcher his name for a while. I apologize, bro. I apologize. Hold your head. He led his team. He led his pro team overseas with 19 points a game as a very young player. The veterans over there deferred to him to be a team leader, and they were a very successful team. He also played on the Russian national team, so he has international Olympic experience. Once again, the comparison I get from him that I kept hearing prior to the draft as he was on the Cav radar, they say he's kind of like a Manu Ginobili, maybe not as athletic, but he definitely has a couple inches, and he's 215, so that's solid size for a shooting guard, a small forward in the NBA. And he definitely has a lot of time to improve his game. From what I'm hearing, he's pretty sound offensively, and once again, with the head honcho in charge is Mike Brown, a defensive genius, as we know from his former Cavaliers days. So that's something that can be worked on. Carrick Felix, our second round pick. I kind of scratched my head a little bit when we took Allen Crabbe. I felt like him and Deion Waiters kind of scored in the same spots, but obviously they made a move to get him out of there. Carrick Felix, he defends, he's athletic. He's a fairly decent spot-up shooter. I can see him developing a serious corner three-point shot. And at 6'6", 205 plus, I can see him being the type of guy that we can throw on the athletic guards in the Eastern Conference and stay in front of him. Maybe down the road, he'd be the type of guy we would put on a Danny Granger in a playoff series. Possibly, one day he might get the assignment of a Dwayne Wade or Paul Pierce or Joe Johnson. So I definitely like that pick in the second round. I think we had a very, very strong draft. The Cavaliers declined the option of Wayne Ellington and bring him back at $5 million a year. He was a pretty good, shooting guard option that they brought in the trade with Memphis when they brought in Maurice Space. It would have been nice to keep Spates around. He was very productive off the bench, but when you got a guy with his size and his willing to mix it up down low and the numbers that he put up in Memphis and Cleveland, you can see why he chose to decline his player option and test the open market, because I'm pretty sure he's going to get a good lump of money from a team that feels like they can use his services. Also, Omari Caspi, this was his second stint in Cleveland, and neither one of them worked out for the former first-round pick. He was a late first-round pick. Neither one of them worked out, so there's no spilled milk or tears being shed for his departure from Cleveland. So as you can see, with Kesarov and Felix, we got two shooting guards / small forwards who can pick up, possibly some of the developmental time and the minutes that Ellington and Caspi took up last year. Obviously, the center position seems to be somewhat of a question mark due to the fact that, I love Anderson. I love the wild thing for Rajo. But at this point, his injuries and inability to play a whole season is kind of, looks like he may end on a sour note unless he can have a healthy season. Big Pekovic up there in Minnesota, restricted free agent. Teams are going to throw money his way. I would not be mad if Cleveland offered this guy some money, because when you put him in the middle offensively and defensively, especially with a coach like Mike Brown, and you let him anchor the back line there, I definitely think that's the type of move that could put the Cleveland Cavaliers in the playoffs. I've heard a little bit talk about Andrew Bynum. I mean, to be honest, when he's healthy, he's 19 points, 8 rebounds and a couple blocks a game. The problem is he hasn't been able to stay healthy with LA. He never suited up once from with the Philadelphia 76ers. However, if we can get him at a discount, I really don't know about that situation because his maturity has always been called into question. And as a team that's already young, we don't need any negative energies like that in the locker room whatsoever. We got Cavs fans. There's $19 million of cap space out there. Max contracts players usually demand anywhere from $12 to $15 million a year. So the Cavs can, chase after a top guy, or they can bring in, a couple of mid-range type of players. Jared Jackson name out there, the point guard / shooting guard from the Golden State Warriors. If you watch the Warriors playing in playoffs, I mean, when the game was on the line, Jack was making big shots every fourth quarter. He showed up. He could run a team. You can bring him off the bench, and he can bring some veteran leadership and stability to a fairly young team. One thing, my older brother, shout out to my older brother Brandon in Cleveland, man. This guy is chomping at the bit to see what's going to happen with the Danny Granger situation in Indiana. Now, I know we just drafted a small forward at the bottom of the first round, but the show, everything stops if we can find a way, whether it's a sign and trade, whether he gets it, whether he somehow gets to the free market and becomes a free agent. I mean, my brother said if there's one guy, back in our battles in the Eastern Conference when LeBron was there, he said if there was one guy who really, gave LeBron fits and really frustrated him as a Cavs fan, it was Danny Granger. Being out here in Denver, Corey Brewer, small forward / shooting guard, very long, very athletic, will defend a top-notch perimeter with all his heart. A decent three-point shooter too. And he's great in transition. So if the Nuggets can't find a way to bring him back, I would definitely love to see Corey Brewer in a Cavs uniform. And with Mike Brown as the coach, he would definitely fit into the system and the scheme there, and he could still stretch the floor with a three-point ball. Josh Smith, I'll pass on that all day, every day, especially with the selection of Anthony Bennett. I think Bennett is going to be a player that's similar with his offensive rebounding and the ability to finish around the rim. However, Josh Smith, in my mind, is just not mature, and he's not worth the money that he's going to be demanding either. So I would definitely pass up on that notion. So with that said, I mean, basically, based off the NBA draft, I think we're headed in the right direction. We just got to remember, we have to do whatever it takes to make sure that Kyrie wants to re-sign with us a couple summers from now. I've heard a little bit about maybe bringing in a Sean Marion to kind of fill the gap at small forward. I'm not really against that. Andre Karolinko just opted out of his contract up there in Minnesota, so bringing him in at a good rate, I wouldn't be against that. He's 6'10", 7-foot wingspan. He can definitely defend the best on the perimeter, and he's also a sneaky good scorer, so I wouldn't be opposed to that option. And I just want to let Cavs fan know that we tried everything possible to trade the number 1 pick. We had a deal shopping our first of our number 1 overall pick and our second pick in the first round. We tried to ship it out to Portland for LaMarcus Aldridge. Portland never bid on that. We had a similar deal that we offered to Minnesota for Kevin Love, and that didn't really go. With that said, I feel like the Cavs are on the right track to getting themselves back into the playoffs. And definitely with the Milwaukee Bucks looks like losing Ellis, and if somebody offers Jennings a restricted free agency deal, Milwaukee has a choice to make there. So I definitely think we can gain ground on the Bucks. Once again, I don't know what's going to happen with the Atlanta Hawks either. So I think we have some room to move up in the East. When it's all said and done, Mike Brown is a defensive mastermind. He had the Cavs in the top 10. Defensively in the league, and you have to think about it. LeBron James was really the only defensive-minded guy that they had on that club, outside of possibly Delonte West and then obviously Anderson Varejao. So I think we're in good standings right now, Cavs fan. Let's see what happens in free agency here with that $18 million that we have in cap space. I'm really looking forward to this season and watching this team develop. So with that said, this is the Cleveland Cavs Corner. I'm Earl Grant. Real Talk with the Sports Heads. Be looking for these installments a little bit more as the season nears, but I'll definitely do a free agency show and get you guys up to date on that. Thanks for tuning in with us. We appreciate it. Have a good one.